welcome to this evening. My name is Charlie McCaig. I'm the National FarmWise Manager. And tonight we're here to hear from Leo and Mark and some Southland farmers who will be introduced shortly on the current ongoing wet weather situation that sort of pretty much kind of started mid-August, as I understand, down there, and it's just been wet and cold, and utilisation's poor, and growth rates are behind where people were expecting. Covers are behind where they would ideally be. So this is primarily aimed at Southland and Otago farmers who are sort of bearing the brunt of this. And just Leo's just put up on the screen there, you can see the top graph there is the soil moisture graph from kind of October 2023 through to where we are now. And you guys have been doing it tough. You can see the soil moisture has been riding high since April and really hasn't had a chance to recover at any point. And the graph underneath shows soil temperatures as well. And obviously everyone's looking for that trend on the right hand side of that graph to be trending upwards as we move into spring. But for the last 3 weeks, she's been going in the other direction. So not ideal. And balanced date should not be far away, but at the moment probably feels like a bit of a long haul to get there. So so what we're going to be talking about this evening is about the effective use of feed planning tools, using what feed you do have on farm to best effect, and as it says on the slide, they're taking control of what you can control. There are pros and cons to any decision that you make on farm. Every farmer knows that, and also times like this can be tough on cows, tough on people as well. So it's really important to be aware of checking on yourself and checking on your staff, your neighbours, your family. Can be tricky. So without further ado, I will hand over to Leo to carry on with the presentation.
Thanks very much, Charlie. So Leo Pekar, farm consultant from Southland. I know a little bit of housekeeping. We'll be recording this conversation. So we'll make that link to the video available hopefully sometime tomorrow in the afternoon once it's edited. So if somebody missed that, we can share it later. So just a little bit of a summary of the situation that we all know. There's a couple of interesting pictures in there. It's a paddock. The entrances and the gateway, they get mucky, and the closer you go, the uglier it looks. We got a map from Environment Southland looking at the places where you cannot apply any effluent, which is the whole of Southland, except for one yellow dot in there. And most of the feed wedges on farm look pretty similar to the one presented on the graph there. There's a bit of grass on the top of the feed wedge, provides feed, probably farmers can see only feed ahead for a week to 10 days max. And then looks quite a couple of drops and a step down. So resources are running out. Silage is not going to last forever. The ponds are getting full quite quickly. We've got a list of sacrifice paddocks that we have to fix. A lot of people are unable to feed out in the paddock, which is becoming an issue. How we're going to look after cows. If we can, drive machinery and you get stuck and you get really poor utilization. The other option, obviously, is in-shed feeding, but not everybody has it. And if you're feeding in the shed, there's a bit of an obligation to milk twice a day. Otherwise, you cannot supply the milk, the meal that you need to the cows. So that's really hard to plan grazings, shuffle and changing, and there are no easy wins for most. I talk to farmers, and everybody has a portion of the farm that is drier, and they got the paddocks with the shelter that they use on weather events, and all the options being used. So at the moment, you don't have an option, and every decision you make has got a negative connotation. So it's easy to go on farm and understand why some people morals are really low, and it's really it's quite heavy when people are unable to feed their stock on the way they want. So we're just providing here an opportunity to just try to see through the problem, get some ideas that you might pick, hopefully, and make a bit of a positive impact going forward. Next slide, please. So now we've got a family of farmers as guests, Amy, Graeme, and Brayden Johnstone. We got a bit of a mix for diversity. We got millennials speaking because the rest of the panel is quite old. So it'll be good to get a perspective from someone who's going through these challenges for the first time. We all have, all the ones that have been farming. We have memories and painful memories from the first droughts, the first floods, and the first events like this that really leave some scar tissues. But yeah, Brayden, how you been coping with the situation?
Oh, I don't know. It was easier last year. A third of the farm flooded, but it was only for 3 days, and it was mint. But yeah, I don't know. It was sucks a bit. The real hard part for us in Southland is we had an exceptional season last season, and we all had really good in-calf rates, early 6-week rates. So we all carried way more cows earlier, and then we were all ahead. Last season was a record season for a lot of people, and this season we're up ahead again. But it gets hard now as everyone's little green arrows on their on-farm apps are all starting to go red. They're all starting to fall behind last season, which has put a big emphasis on the hurt a little bit. You know, because everyone carried better cow condition into the winter and they're all setting up for another record season, and it's just not going to come for a lot of people probably this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess with the challenges, priorities might be shifting. You start looking at the docket and you think, oh, yeah, no, we can put a lot of milk in the vat, and all of a sudden, you know, we're 6 weeks away from mating and body condition score it's becoming more of a priority. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. We noticed probably last fortnight we started to have cows start dropping condition, or they just weren't looking as good as we like. So we started putting in more palm and pulling some more levers to try contain any condition loss. For us, it was a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the average pasture cover at the moment?
About 2250 at the moment, and we've been growing around probably anywhere from 30 to 35 in the past 2-3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in a good position, and big part of that is that despite the challenges, you have stuck to your spring rotation planner, and you managed to be quite close to, you only finishing 2-3 days ahead of the plan we made. So how did you achieve that when, you know, everybody feels like the cows need to be double shifted?
Well, someone has done it before, and they won't let go of the leash. So we've always been holding them pretty tight. It's always been our philosophy. We can let them go, but we can't pull them back. We're stocked quite high for Southland. We're about 3.2 cows a hectare. So we have to be quite conservative until balanced state, or else we can lead into a big hole and they won't peak very well at all. To deal with it is we've probably started being careful how we feed supplements to try to get better utilisation. Our silage stack's quite low at the moment, so we've been switching to other forms of supplement to try and increase lying time.
Yeah. So in-shed feeding and palm kernel troughs have been a big tool to get through this process.
Yeah, we feed like a lot of that, but we also feed the silage. We always feed a day ahead, so we're feeding to the cows. We don't feed the wagon with the cows in the paddock. We always do it a day ahead, so then they're not rushing around the paddock. Probably the last couple of years we've changed a few things as far as we just make sure the cows are really, really full. But that's, you know, we're able to pull a few more levers now. So we just make sure the cows, and they don't seem to walk around the same. We definitely noticed by just keeping them really full. And then we do things like just always put the cows in the back gate, take them out the front gate. Try not to go near them if we can get away with it during the day.
There's an interesting piece of research that says that every kg of supplementary feed we provide to the cows, they spend 40 minutes less grazing and walking and roaming for food, which is good to minimize plugging. But obviously, you know, we're probably feeding 5 or 6 kilos at least, you know, in and out of a cow shed. So that's about 4 hours in theory that the cows are not roaming and trashing the paddocks.
Yeah, and that's made quite a difference for that sort of thing. What are the things we do? Yeah, pretty much that's probably the main one. Just like feeding the silage a day ahead so they're not chasing the wagon. And then just heaps of palm kernel in the shed and on the exit lane. Pretty much ad lib on the exit lane just seems to do that, which is something we've changed in the last couple of years.
As big medic, we don't have the halo mark. We started off the season, we were putting PK in the paddock, to try slow them down, but then we started getting halo marks quite severe. So we experimented on our exit lane and then on our laneway on our other farm, and it worked really well. The cows sort of come past it, so you get a wider variety of cows exposed to it compared to probably if you just dropped it off in the paddock as well.
Yeah. Cool. That's really good. We'll go back to a few tips to wrap it up at the end of the conversation. And in the meantime, thanks very much. We'll catch up again. But next slide. So mainly one of the things we're going to get out of today is that the situation is, creating quite a lot of concern and anxiety. And it's a bad feeling when you can't look ahead of yourself and plan the grazings for a long period. So one of the titles of this webinar that we're trying to say to people is, if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail basically. So with a plan and a feed plan, what you mean is like, just get a basic feed budget, understand where you are, how much feed you got on hand in regards of pastures, what are the levers that we have. There's only 3 levers that we can pull, but we can do a lot with those 3. We got ground length, we got supplement allocation and milking frequency. With those 3, we can do a lot of stuff, and we should use those levers to set ourselves to feed the cows the best way we can and maximize our opportunities and chances to get back on top once the conditions change. Because if we keep going around the farm and grazing and leaving the paddocks bare and chewing regrowth, it's going to be so much harder to get out of it. So you got to make the most of that. And the vehicle to get there is having a plan and sticking to it. It needs to set realistic target and position ourselves for success. What a plan can provide is a bit of a roadmap and guidance on how much do we need to feed, how much is it going to take, what is the cost of that and the consequences. It's going to give us a bit of perspective because it's great to see I'm having a lot of conversations with farmers. We make a quick update to the spring rotation planner and they can see week by week where they're going to be in feed position wise and how long is it going to take them out. So when we have these conditions and we always dealing with the elements and bog in the mud, it's quite easy to just focus on the issue on hand and having a bit of a plan and sitting down and then looking at the whole farm and the system and what's happening next month. It gives you a different perspective and that creates from a point of view a little bit of hope. And if we grow what we think we're going to grow, we're going to be out of it in 3 weeks, for example. If we don't grow as much as we hope we will, well, there's a plan B, and that's going to take a little bit more feed and maybe a few more days. But, it's quite comforting to see that, we have a plan. So, next one. And up to you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. Yeah, so Mark Olsen-Vetland. So, FarmWise consultant in Otago, covering Lower South Island as well. So obviously just carrying on from what we said, a lot of these key points run out of this, and it's really just having, like Leo said, a good plan. Graham's touched on it there as well, with it is sticking to your guns and knowing where you're heading. And I think like what's highlighted in there, that's not a particularly onerous task to pull that together just out of your spring rotation planner. Get a good understanding of where we're currently at and what it looks like as a roadmap moving forward. And like we've touched on there, there's a lot of guys just finishing that first round. Some are coming off some reasonable covers. The first couple of weeks of August weren't too bad. So quite often, the next week might not look too bad. It's tempting to think, hey, we'll crack into a quicker round and it'll look after us. But just as Brayden said there, quite often, what are those covers going to be looking like in 1 week, 2 weeks? Suddenly we can go too fast too soon. And obviously, like Leo says, getting a bit of a plan, see what that looks like. What level of supplement do we need to put in to make that work? Where do we see us getting back up to being able to fully feed those cows on pasture? And I say that pretty easy template. You can make it as complicated as you like, but this is a really good way to see one page on a table. What are our triggers? Really easy to have these numbers up in the cow shed, pop them up on the whiteboard. A lot of my guys will use that. What's our pre-graze target? So as soon as we're under, we know we'll pull that lever. It might be a bit more PK on the lane, like these guys have talked about. It might be a bit more feed in the shed. It might be looking at some milking frequency. Do we keep those newly calved cows on once a day for a few more weeks or whatever it is? But just being able to see those triggers. And as we say, we hope, 3-4 weeks time, we're going to see those covers lifting and things coming away. But again, easy to update that, keep a track on it. Even the residual side of it, sometimes when, some of the pictures we're seeing there on the screen, it's pretty hard to hit 1600. So again, just being aware, are we actually getting 11, 12 kilos into the cow? So just being able to have some good KPIs that yourself and the team can follow. We know what we're looking for. We know what next week looks like. As I say, it can be a little bit tempting that last week of the first round. I think it looks all good and can see a week ahead, but just making sure that's gonna keep going. And how much feed does it take? So quite easily see there on the right, what does that actually mean? How much silage? Like Leo says, quite a few of the stacks are beginning fairly low now, towards the tail end of September. What does that look like? And update that as we go, and what are the levers that we've got to pull. And I guess just looking at where we want to go, as we say, if we can't supply enough feed to cover the deficit, we need to lower the demand. What are the levers that we can pull? Where do we tuck those things in to keep things moving in the right direction, and make sure that we're only 6 weeks out from mating, that we get things heading in that right direction and back on track. There's still a lot of season there. It's often said, I think Graeme actually said it earlier, Southland usually looks after us. But again, we want to put ourselves in a position where, we're in control of that and we're planning for success rather than failing to plan. I'll just hand back over to you there, Leo.
I'll just
jump
there if I could. Just a couple of questions in the chat that we'll just grab up. So we'll go further. So one was around whether has Environment Southland declared that no effluent should be spread? Have they given that message out? Do you know?
Not aware of that.
Sorry. No.
It's cool. And then second question was what are the team's view on the use of ProGib or gibberellic acid under the current conditions?
So ProGib as a tool, from my point of view, I've never been a big user of it, but it's got its place. And if people have the conditions to spray it, and they could make a difference. What is proven is that you'll get a better response when mixed with liquid N, with diluting the urea. So my understanding, if you're going to do it with nitrogen as well.
Yeah, 100%. Same with my guys up here. It's really, if you've got the capacity to get it on, it will work well with the liquid in. A couple of guys do it consistently, and this time of year it does work well. But the biggest limitation probably is if you're relying on contractors and other things, can you actually get that lever on?
I'm personally advising my farmers, and this is probably a learning from the Johnstones here. It's like, we had a lot of rain, and sulfur is leached quite badly. So even the ammo that we applied in August is pretty, we don't know, but it's pretty likely that it's going to be quite thin on the organic sulfur available for the plant. So on this farm, we're going for a second round of ammo application. We know it works better and colder soil conditions, and it will give a boost to the sulfur available. So that's the option that we are choosing. Cool. Right. So back to the slide. So a few discussion points to talk about. Milking frequency is something that is really useful. If we have a limit on the systems that we run and we are unable to provide as much feed as we want for the cows, reducing milking frequency is a must as an option. we need to protect body condition score in the lead to mating. But having said that, everything is within reason, and you have to analyze every budget, individually and within the context of the cow's body condition score. Body condition score is, one tool that we can use, and then sometimes, if we just underfeed by a small margin, cows are quite resilient beasts, and they drop their demands, with the milk production. So one of the things that in these conditions, and depending on the situation that we're saying, is like probably we have to plan of feeding the cows better tomorrow than today. Look after the cows. I'm not talking about starving or anything. I'm just saying feed the cows. But if you can't feed 18 and we feed 17, they can do that for a couple of weeks, and we're going to put ourselves in a better position later on the run. And regards of sacrifice paddocks or off-paddock grazing, if you got facilities, you'll be using them a lot. If you don't have facilities, you're more likely to do a bit of damage. If the case is that you got a type of soil that makes a lot of damage, and it's much easier to concentrate the damage to one area that you can fix. It's easier to regrass 20% of the farm than 20% of each paddock, which becomes quite daunting. There are some spreading options for nitrogen, the choppers and tractors with and options that is not the bulky. And we're going to discuss later a little bit about effective supplementation, and looking at the run length and yeah, that's it for me. We're gonna probably touch on those topics later. Regarding body condition score, skip that. We already talked about it.
Yeah.
And here is something about effective supplementation. So we got a table with two different feeds. It's all in-shed feeding, but the first table is looking at feeding cows with a blend of $450. Both the other blend on the second table, as the cost is $600. So we're looking at feeds with the same dry matter percentage, same utilization, and same extra expenditure, because every kilo of solids extra we produce has got a cost involved in it, labor, cooling the meal. There's a lot of things on the long run. So when you look at the table, the columns, you see the response rate. So it means like how many kilos of dry matter it takes to produce a kilo of milk solids. And according to the payout, you got an operating surplus figure, or sort of a profit, for the feed. So, for example, the first table with the feed at $400 is $450. Sorry, it's much easier to produce a profit. You can get a profit with a lower milk response rate. At current payout, $850. Even if we get a response of 11-1, which is not great, and we should be doing better than that. And in early spring, we're still making a profit. So it gives you a little bit of tranquility that you're feeding the cows and you're not losing money, you're not going broke at least. And the second table, we got the red numbers are increasing quite a bit, and that's mainly because of the cost of the feed. So what we see is to get a similar outcome or profit, that feed needs to be far more efficient in transforming kilos of dry matter into milk solids. So I love all the feeds, all the DDG, the soy hulls, the cotton seed. The only thing I got against them is the price. So we do need to use other feeds in blends on top of palm kernel, because it's very limited the amount we can feed with palm kernels. Most people are feeding heavy amounts of supplements, and we need to increase the palatability. But yeah, you have to be careful on how much money is the price landed of that feed, because quite quickly can get north of 600 and becomes quite daunting to get a profit out of that. The other feed that I haven't included in here, because I didn't want to make the Johnson's cry, is the silage one. Because the silage, the current conditions with the utilization issues that we have, the cost of silage and really poor response in milk is quite uneconomical. But to be honest, there's still a gap and a deficit that needs to be filled in order to feed the cows. And sometimes it still's got a space and within the circumstances.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going to say something on that one?
For us at the moment, we're landing our in-shed feeding for around $400.
That's right.
Thanks for that. That's cool. I just see there's one other comment there in the chat as well, just around the calves. And I think, yeah, look, 100% agree. Sometimes it's not the right call to keep calves inside. We'll cover it a bit more in the tip section. But I think the key here is just knowing what works in your system and what you can make work. And it's certainly not about putting an extra stress on one part of the system at the expense of others. But I mean, it's really just, I guess, looking at all the choices are there. So if it doesn't work for you, 100%, look at those other options. So I guess, yeah, the next one, we've touched on it a little bit with the conversation around gibberellic acid, and obviously clearly a lot of benefit at the moment from some sulfur going in with the ammo. But I guess the age-old conversation around nitrogen at this time of year is that old response versus utilization. So typically this time last year, we're having a lot of conversations around why are we using nitrogen? We're just going to grow a surplus. At the moment, we've got cold soil temperatures. We're probably not going to be getting really, really high response rates. But again, the key is we know we're going to utilize that feed that we grow from it. We know we've got a hole coming up that we can fill. So if we can get it on, it's a really useful lever. A bit like the supplement rate, we're not going to get those really, really top response rates that we need. But again, being able to fill that gap, knowing that we're pushing quality feed, giving us those options to manage some of those paddocks as we come out. Because again, potentially we're going to be looking at a slightly reduced effective area. As Leo said, trying to keep damage to clear areas is going to help, but we are going to have some low-level pugging even in paddocks that we haven't, don't perhaps look too bad from the track. And we're going to obviously have some areas we've damaged. So making sure that we're growing as much as we can on the area that's effective, moving into that second and third round is going to set us in a much better place for mating. So, just looking at those numbers there, that's just an ammo. That's not including your spreading and some of your freight charges, obviously. But, just looking at it from a cost of nitrogen perspective, yes, great to be in the top right-hand corner. And it looks really cost effective if we're getting, a 20-to-1 response rate and using every kilo. But even like the guys have just said there, silage with the wastage is up at 60 cents. So, getting a good, even a 10-to-1 response rate and knowing that in 3 weeks' time, we're going to utilize 90% of that feed, it's still a pretty cost-effective option in the toolbox. And as we've talked already, that the addition of that sulfur is going to help our uptake in cold conditions, root uptake and usage and efficiency within the plant. So it's really just making sure we're using those things. We'll talk a little bit more about the tips at the end, and there might be some things in the chat of options to get it on. But again, just being able to get that in where you can, take advantage of the good days. Some guys can get a bulky on some bits of the farm, and then that takes the pressure off if you're trying to chase with the bike spreader or do bits yourself with the spreader. And it's a busy time. There's plenty of other things going on. But again, the key is trying to push feed in. And like Leo says, feed better tomorrow than we are today. And we're not far away from some key periods in the year. There's a lot of season left, as we say. Obviously, all of this, again, looking after yourself. And I agree, there's often lots of reasonings around milking frequency and what we're doing, but sometimes that can be the key, looking after yourself, looking after the people on the farm. Lots of the things we're talking about here are technical problems, but lots of technical problems get easier to fix if we're all in a good headspace, ready to take things on board. Can look up, it's hard being in there, but taking that little bit of time, and that can just be you know, keeping, like I say, keeping those colostoms on once a day or something like that just gives that bit of time to get on with those other jobs, see a bit more of what's going on. Definitely enjoy the wins when they're there. You know, enjoy those sunny days, take advantage of those things. You know, a couple of hours off the farm to go and watch the kids play sport or whatever can be a big difference. And sometimes when you drive down the road, you see that the neighbour, and you know, every neighbour looks just as bad as your place or whatever. And that can be, you know, that can be a big help just to get your head in the right space. And like we're talking about here, you know, ask for help if you need it. You know, obviously, as we said, we're on the end of the line, but there's plenty of other people out there that are there to help. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Check in on your neighbours, check in on your mates, make sure others are there and they know those things are there for them too. Just put through. So we're just going to go through some of those tips, Leo. So I'll hand back to you and Graeme, if that's all right, mate.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Mark. So we just got some bullet points in there, and we're going to chat with Brayden and Graeme about what do they do and some of the stuff that I see around and we see around. So feel free to chip in, Mark. So in regards of people, can you talk us through what you're doing to, you know, keep people in good spirits and yeah.
So we run our team are always 5-2 all year, except for me. But we basically just make sure that carries on. Things like you know, lots of thank you, like doing a good job to the staff, shouting fish and chips on a Friday or something to them, because it's pretty hard work for the staff to out in the paddock, trump around mud all day. What are some of the things? Where if you have shorter staff, a lot of your local contractors will have spare staff at the moment because they've got in all their extra staff for contracting. So if you talk to your local guy, he can probably have, you know, a couple of guys for even a couple of days a week or something to, you know, catch up on some jobs, or maybe they can do you know, some spreading on farm with you know, your on farm tractors or your sprayer and put some pro jib on if that's the case.
It's great. It takes the pressure off. I think it costs $4,000 for 1 million liters of effluent to put through an umbilical. So
doing
you
things
know,
like that, yeah.
People is flat out, and you're looking after all the things. It's good to lean on your contractors.
Also, I'd like to say my 2 cents. Our staff are on a 5-2 roster, but we're on 100 and none. And we're tired, and we've been working in this weather, so we've decided to get some extra people in to do some relief milking, so we can just sit on the couch and have an afternoon off, or just go into town and have lunch or something. But just probably weren't planning to take a rest, but we've had to, you know, we've had an opportunity to get somebody in to do some milkings, or maybe to feed the calves, just so we can have a bit of a rest, because it's been a little bit more of a battle than usual, and usually we wouldn't take this any rest, but we've definitely feeling it. So we've been a bit kinder to ourselves, and maybe we have in other years. So I think that's been really important, is find someone in the community to maybe just take, you know, you still got to do the morning jobs, you still got to feed in the morning, but just if you can find somebody that's not working because it's wet to come and do a few afternoon jobs, just so you can have a rest. I think it's been a really good thing that we've been doing in the last 10 days.
You've been ringing around and checking on your neighbors lately. What did you find?
Yeah, we've been talking to like a lot of our old staff that are all contracting, you know, fresh contract milkers, just checking on, see how they're all doing. They're all finding it pretty tough. And then you just try and give them a bit of a pep talk and that sort of thing, especially when you've been doing it for a few years. You know, a few things that they may not have thought of to do. Try to make some of the jobs easier if you can possibly get away with it. Like on our farm, generally, people come first before animals. So if your people aren't looking at, you know, doing it right, you make bad decisions or you make wrong decisions, you know, or not very smart ones at the time. So try and keep the people all sorted, and usually that means, you know, that helps everything pretty well. Yeah.
Excellent. Next bullet point, spagging. Something I would say that nobody likes to talk. We don't enjoy talking about is standing cows off. Nobody likes to do it, but sometimes it's like, you know, what we said, feed cows tomorrow better than today. preserve those pastures, so we got something to eat on the second and the third round. And sometimes you have to stand paddock off in yards. You have to give them more space. So if you have a 400 cow yard, you can only hold 200. If you're doing it on the yard, that's the only facility you have. And cows' basic needs are, 8 hours of lying down, 8 hours of eating. So basically what that means is you can stand cows off for about 6 to 8 hours a day for a period of time.
Some of the things we've done for that, like on farms with not much infrastructure, we've on a maybe one of the lanes out the back a wee bit, we'll divide them into like mobs of 50, and then sort of put reels across the lane, so each mob's only in a smaller mob, so they can't all pack to one end or anything like that, and just stand them, or like feed silage on the lane, and then divide them into groups on the lane for short times. That's what we've done in the past.
Okay.
Just to stop them walking up and down, up and down, up and down. So you just block them off into little sections. What else have we done? Basically, like you said, just put them on a sacrifice paddock. So you only wreck one paddock, and that sort of thing. None of the options are great at this time of year when it's this wet, but sometimes you just have to do some stuff.
Do you graze paddocks from the back? Do you make cows walk over long grass?
No, not really. Well, most of the way with our farm, we don't have to do it. Like, we're getting through a paddock so quick, pretty much, that we don't have to worry about that too much.
Some people do it, and it's quite effective. It's amazing what a difference does to make cows walk over long grass. If you take a few breaks out of the paddock and you start grazing from the back, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, we try not to make too much extra work, though. We're a little bit lazy like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Right. Next point is supplement feeding. It's just so much that we can put through the cow shed, and we want cows to eat a bit more outside. So what are you doing with your barn kennel troughs? Have you used any concrete areas? You put them on the paddocks?
We started with them in the paddock, but they made too much mess. So we've moved them to the exit lane. We're lucky. We used to feed back in the day, feed Prolic, so we've got a wider part of the lane. We can put a couple of troughs in, just so they can feed it, and so at the moment our cows are getting 4 kilos in the shed, and they're probably eating 2, maybe more on the lane of palm kernel. Our cows are quite little palm kernel hogs, so they'll eat heaps of it. That's pretty much what we're doing. And like I said, if we feed in size, we feed before the cows go on the paddock. So usually the day before.
Well, our smaller farm doesn't have the concrete area. It has a wider part of its lane by the cow shed of gravel. So we're just using a 1 palm kernel trailer there for the small herd. And that's working quite well. They're probably going to damage the lane, but that's a small price to pay. It'll probably cost a couple $100 with a digger, and it'll be mint. And it'll get us through a pitch period, and we won't damage the paddocks. Is what we're also doing, works well. Yeah.
What will you do if you can't go in the paddocks with the silage wagon?
You feed it down, like I said, down the lane, and then just fence them off a wee bit. Or if you can, and you have to do that to hold the cows up a wee bit, so that they all let them go and they all get one go at the same time. And that's sort of things we've done in the past. Never easy if you can get your size ready on the pad, but probably feeding on the lane would be something, and then just hold cows up so the fat bitches at the front don't get a free, eat 10 kilos of silage, and the poor last row gets none.
Something I noticed is a lot of people have delayed the splitting of the herds, and makes things easier to manage. So we end up with, 500 cow herds. And the last heifers, arrive in the paddock 2 hours later when the grass is so dirty, and, the cows had a good go at, eating most of what's palatable. So would you put a second fence and lift half of the break, when you're there, when you finish milking?
Yeah, we've done things like that. Or sometimes you put a bat latch on the gate, like on the lane halfway down, so it just holds them up a bit more, and that lets them go when you've got a certain rough time of letting them get, so then they all tune up to the paddock at the same time. Yeah. Or you can auto draft and go, if you've got auto drafting, send some of the younger cows maybe to the night paddock or something first.
Yeah. Cool. if you're feeding supplements, stretch it out as long as possible, long and thin. Feed as much under the wire as you can. And across the direction the cows are walking in the paddock, so they don't use it as, as paths. Anything else, Mark? You got anything else on feeding supplements?
I think, those are probably the key ones. Try and be on a fence line or a long line. And that's a big one we're struggling with at the moment, is big mobs and some of those heifers at the back. So a few guys are holding half the cows on the yard. Draft back into the yard can be quite effective, like Graeme says. The key thing is just making sure you're getting all the cows are getting the benefit from that supplement, not only a third of the herd, and you're wasting 40-50%, because silage can get pretty expensive pretty fast if your cows are not actually using it. And I think it really feeds into that next point. We're trying to grow more grass. So, a lot of the benefit from that silage now is stopping overgrazing, stopping the pacing, creating the contentment. So we really want to make sure we're getting that into every mouth we can. And like we've talked already, we know those younger cows and those, that last row out of the shed is often the girls that are the ones that need the most help. So really it's just trying to even it up. So every dollar we're spending on supplement in whatever form is getting us as higher utilization and creating as much benefit for that feed wedge going forward, really.
Yeah. Another thing that is worth repeating, as set all your breaks and your feeding before the cows arrive in the paddock. Just stay away and make sure that you don't provoke cows walking, getting up, and then following you or anything like that. Minimize any chance you give the cows to walk. So in regards of growing more grass, at this time of the year, round length is our friend. The longer the round length, the more chances we have to bounce forward, from this deficit earlier. And the lower we take our covers and we chew the top of the wedge, the longer it's going to take. So, grass grows grass, and we grow 50% or half of the grass is grown on the last leaf stage. So we got to make sure that we always have paddocks, in there, and then we got to make sure that when we set our feed budgets, we harvest in less grass than what we're growing. Otherwise, we're going backwards. Something, whenever possible, I want to see cows inside for us, until November, maybe this year. I don't want anything else ideally growing, eating grass and competing for milkers grass. Every blade of grass is there for milkers at the moment because we really need it. Fertilizer is key, which we already discussed. And we're just waiting for a bit of soil temperature, really. In regards to fertilizer, any tips on how to apply on such wet conditions?
With a hovercraft, I suppose you can use helicopters, but they're pretty hard to come by, to be fair, at the moment. Everyone wants them. We've chosen to go with a JC. Our local contractor has a JCB with a 3-point linkage type spreader. And last time we used it early in the late August, so you didn't make too much mess. We just told them to stay out of the wetter bits, and it seemed to get around pretty good. We probably wouldn't be doing a truck anytime soon because, we're pretty wet where we are. That worked not too bad. I'm actually putting some Projib on tomorrow. I'll go to town and get some and put some on. And that's where I'll utilise. We have our own sprayer, but I'll get a contractor maybe to drive the tractor or something.
So they're not going to be cutting silage anytime soon, so there's a few spare guys around. So we'll just pay somebody to drive our tractor and our sprayer.
All these seasonal staff are just arriving now. For October.
Oh.
Good stuff. In regards of effluent, we need to stay on top of our ponds. There's always some paddocks where they're safer and they're probably not as waterlogged as some other areas and freer of drainage that might cause some issues. So we got to be really mindful with effluent. We need to spread it, but we're very limited on the options that we have in there. So it's going to be better on longer grass. And then drier areas and hill areas, wherever it's not going to reach drains quickly. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. and that's quite an important key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, just that's actually a real challenge. It's probably the worst one because a lot of us came through Southland. Obviously, the autumn was pretty wet too, so we haven't emptied our ponds as low as they normally would. So I guess anytime you get a small window to put some on, or if you've got the low rate dollar, maybe only irrigate for 5 or 10 minutes as opposed to 15 to 20 minutes on it, alternate it and try and change that a wee bit. Yeah. Or get in an umbilical to do a bit of the dry part of the farm.
Yeah. And in regards to fixing the damage, what are you looking at doing? Will you do some stitching, or how will you address the issues?
Yeah, we'll probably heavy roll anything that's really bad, and then we have our own drill, so we'll just do some undersowing. And undersow just maybe some hybrids in or something. If it's a paddock that we're not going to regrass, if it's one we're probably going to regrass, we'll put it in crop because we winter on farm.
Yeah. Biggest issue with pagging is that there's some air pockets in the soil with the pagging, and so much moisture will lose that. So there's no oxygen for the bacteria to mineralize the soil and get nutrients available for growth, and so plants don't thrive. So would you look at aeration, and especially, I've seen some soils that have been damaged from the autumn, and the surface is, completely sealed.
Yeah, we're looking at aerating. We've got a friend who has a heavy roller that has aeration tines on it, so we're looking at leasing that for a short period in mid-October if the soil conditions come correct, and then use that to try to level out any severe pucking damage and encourage some oxygen into the soil profile. But yeah.
Will you put some seed on at the same time?
Depending how bad the damage is, but we've got our own was it a disc drill, so we'll probably stitch in any severe areas, but most of it's limited to the gateways and the corners. But yeah.
So far.
The lane is worse than when you go in there. Like a lot of the damage when you drive up the lane, if you're just looking with blinkers on, you'd think, oh, that looks terrible. But when you actually go into the paddock, it's not as bad as it looks.
Yeah.
And I think if you're feeling a bit sad sack and you're just driving, looking at all the gateways, well, you're probably just going to the centre of the paddock and you sort of see the damage in there. It's not as bad as it appears. All the water seems to sit on the sides of the lane, and it just looks atrocious. But when you've actually gone in the middle of it, it's not as damaged as what I feared. So that's good.
A key part too is we're doing weekly farm walks at the moment. Grass is scarce. We need to know how much we're growing. But the big part is when we do our farm walk is monitoring soil conditions. So we're looking at what paddocks are dry enough to put on fertiliser, what paddocks are likely to be damaged easily, where should they go next. A big thing for pugging for us actually was last season, and was it February? We did the regrassing.
No.
It was we did some regrassing on some of our poor paddocks that we really wanted to be a key tool coming into this season. And with the autumn, none of them really tilled and developed. So coming into this season, we had 2 new grass paddocks that we wanted to protect. So what we did for those is we opened the cows right up, since we had been holding our ground, and to try and encourage tillering there. And we've just got some paddocks we're trying to just protect from pugging as assets for later in the season, since we haven't had much return from them yet in terms of growth. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the tips, I think. So is it Charlie with the next slide?
We just got one question there in the chat too. Charlie, did you want to do that first?
Yeah, I think we let's just grab that because I think it spans a bit of the conversation. But it was around trigger points for milking frequency and when they might be. Is it on a certain body condition score level? Is it average pasture cover drops below a certain level? Lameness, supplement resources. What advice would you guys give around when the time is right to jump onto a different milking frequency?
So I think you got to be proactive with milking frequency. As soon as you reach 4.2 body condition score, there's bound to be probably 40% of the herd that body condition score 4 or below. So before you need to fix and put everything once a day, I will say like, yep, not just look at the average, but look at the spread. And cows that are 4 or below, put them on a once a day mob and look after them. That's the best you can do. And if the other ones are still losing condition, and if you are unable to provide the cows with 17 kilos of feed, everything should go once a day.
Mine would be the same. If condition score really targeting anything below 4, but if it's more of as the question there, if it's more driven by average pasture cover and feed, then obviously prioritize in order, try to make sure that the colostrum is being really well looked after. Those cows are going to be struggling anyway, so they're better off to be on once a day, look after those younger cows, and still feeding into the same motto, feed better tomorrow. Lameness is always going to be a bit of an issue, particularly if you're feeding on lanes or holding cows off. You are going to see a bit more lameness. So again, just trying to be proactive any way you can. It's way better to have a mob of your bottom 20% on once a day now for 3 weeks and set yourself up running into mating than it is to be, like Leo says, having the whole mob dragging back to 16 hours in 3-4 weeks time. So I think the key is look at all those triggers. It's one of the tools in the toolbox, but we don't want to be mining that bottom end. We've already talked about some of the issues with them, but particularly if your average pasture cover is low, and like Graeme and the guys have said, if you haven't got the levers of feed, then you have really got to be proactive, and you need to do it early. There's no point waiting until you've run out of feed to put a mob on once a day. If you can see the hole in that wedge is coming, put them on once a day now, get them settled in that routine, get the brakes set out, get it ready to go, and just accept that's the right decision today to set you up for 2-3 weeks down the track would be my triggers.
One for us would be communicating if you're like contract milkers and you have owners that live away from the area or something like that, maybe making videos just to sort of show the owners that may not understand what it's actually like, the conditions as to why you might want to go once a day. Is there any more levers that they'll let you pull, if under these circumstances? Sometimes when you're like in Southland, there's a lot of owners that are away or something, they don't kind of understand. So some videos and just lots of communication with them, because they might not think it's as bad as it is for you, and they will actually let you pull some more levers if they can understand the situation that you're in, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Yeah, great tips, guys. Thank you. So we are just about wrapped up for this evening. If anyone in the chat has any last question or comment, you've got about 60 seconds to bang it in there and get an answer whilst I wrap up. Otherwise, what you can do is follow up with Mark or Leo tomorrow over the next few days. So basically, the guys are offering some support here. If you want to get a 30-minute run through to kind of look at your situation and help you put a plan together, that's a service we're offering out for free, which is in response to the situation that you're currently facing. And I think if I could, there's a lot of information has been discussed in this webinar, and some great tips on that last slide gone through as well. And I think, if I were to summarize a key takeaway for me is that, it's being proactive in a situation like this, and keep looking for opportunities and keep making decisions. And the line there about trying to feed the cows better tomorrow than today is a great fundamental one. And as well, just remember, like, the sun will come out eventually. It might not be tomorrow, but it will come out. You can guarantee that. So get some advice if you want a hand. Reach out to Leo or Mark. We will be emailing the recording of this webinar out to all the attendees, and we have some supporting material that we can send through if people are interested. We could probably provide the slides if that's a useful thing. But yeah, just hang in there and keep your head up. So other than that, so thank you to everybody who's come along this evening. Thanks in particular to Graeme, Amy, and Brayden. Really appreciate your comments and your input. And Amy really liked your positive slant on looking at paddocks and getting out into the middle rather than just looking at the worst bits in the gateway. I think it's a great tip. And thank you to Mark and Leo. All really good job. Let's hope that rain stops real soon.
Before we close, I'd like to invite people to put their contacts if they want a call back and to arrange a quick budget, over video call. And I would like to say thank yous to, we approach a few organizations and they've been, sharing the message and then getting the webinar link out. So thanks very much to Thriving Southland, Rural Support Trust, and Federated Farmers. The rest we haven't made contact. That's the only reason they haven't shared it. It's been planned only on a few days. But yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity. And LIC as well.
Good stuff. Have a great evening.
Sure.